So let's start by just telling people about this fascinating study that we're here to talk about, and then we'll go back and cover some background. So Seth, can you start us off? First off, this study is a meta-analysis. What does that mean?
Yeah. Okay. Great questions. So you introduced this by saying this is the central question. And I just want to point out here that it's so central that we are not the first people to ask it. Um, there are many different ways you can try to approach this. The way we do this is by meta-analysis. A meta-analysis is a study where you take the results of other studies and you come up with a weighted average of those studies. So, like in the ideal case, let's say you had 10 studies that are all about the effects of, I don't know, insecticide treated malaria nets on malaria. It's really easy to do a meta analysis. You just like put those studies into the blender and you come up with an average answer on malaria cases that just gives more weight to studies with more people in the sample. The question we're doing is a little more complicated because there are so many different approaches to reducing meat, right? Consumption. You could do like um, norm studies, or you could change the way people see meat, or you could try to introduce them to this fake product called Elwood's dog meat, which Benny has done some of with ASAP, or before ASAP, I guess. And then, but like averaging those results together is hard because like, what's the average of those two things, like the dog meat thing and the psychology thing? Like, it doesn't really mean anything when you average those two very unlike things together. So, what we do is we look at all the best studies that's like defined a certain way, and then we group them up by their category. So we try to get like the average effect of psychology experiments and persuasion experiments and like compare those head to head. That's the paper in a
Mm.
nutshell.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds almost impossible, like almost like comparing apples and oranges, but absolutely vital because none of these studies actually on their own are really that big as far as I can tell. Can you just give us an idea of and I think you've summarized it in a few different categories, the types of interventions that the studies you were looking at were considering in how to achieve this goal. Well, the
Yeah,
goal might not be exactly the same, but the types of interventions that you considered to include in your meta-analysis and why.
sure. Okay. So as I said, this question has been asked a lot before, and there have been a bunch of previous meta-analyses and literature reviews. The approach we take is we ask, okay, so what do the good papers say? Like if we look at just papers that meet the following criteria, what do we learn? And those are like they had to have basically at least 50 people in the whole study. So we didn't want to look at these like tiny studies. There are a couple, like an example of a tiny study is one dorm gets a message saying meat is bad or something like that, and the other doesn't, and you just compare dorm to dorm. That's effectively having like one subject in each treatment pool because you're only like assigning at the level of like one dorm's output versus another. So we try to like not look at any of those studies. We look only at randomized control trials as opposed to observational stuff or things that like things that watch people do something and then say, okay, now what happened to you? Instead, we try to look at things that assign people to some treatment or not. And they have to actually measure meat consumption as opposed to what do you feel about meat or like what do you plan to eat in a week or whatever. And they have to measure that at least a single day after treatment starts. We want to get like some delay. So when we do this, when we like limit to just these studies, we started out with thousands of studies. We like really did review thousands of studies, and we ended up with 35, and they all basically fall into the following categories. This is actually your question. Sorry for all the preamble. Um, the big one is persuasion, which is trying to talk to people about why they should eat less meat and animal products. We also do a little bit of most of it. Mostly we're talking about meat, but there are a couple things that are like fish sauce or dairy or cheese or whatever. Um, persuasion comes in. I'm going to ask you, like, what would one guess here? You know, like how would you try to persuade people about animals?
I would physical violence probably.
Oh, you that's kind of intervention did not make it into our analysis for some reason.
Oh, okay. I mean,
Good
I
good guess.
think our hen house is sort of built on the foundation that we don't know how, that there is no one right way, that like, for someone it might be handing them a cupcake, and for someone else it might be like open rescue.
And personally, my bent is always to just try to tell people that there are these really terrible things happening to animals. But I know that I now know from reading your paper that
Yeah.
that's a total waste of time.
Yeah, well, sorry about that.
It's my
That gives away.
life,
Yeah.
but what are you gonna do?
I mean, okay, so those three answers were give a cupcake, I would call that like kindness, or give someone vegan food and see if they like it. And the other ones are
Mhm.
animal welfare based. So in the persuasion category, I'm looking at we looked at things that tried to tell people about animal welfare, the environment, and health. I think these are kind of the obvious, like conceptual approaches if you're trying to get someone to eat less meat. Although I want to get back to the cupcake point because there's not nearly enough giving people good vegan food and seeing if that does the trick. I would love to see this study more. Okay, so most studies are persuasion. We have these three categories, and some things do a mixture of two categories, like health and environmental reasons to cut back. Then there's choice architecture, which changes how meat is served and presented to people. I'll give two examples of this. The one is, okay, so you're walking into a university cafeteria, and there's like a big billboard menu of all the options. And
Mhm.
the treatment is that the vegetarian thing is at eye level. Like it's not rocket science, this stuff. It's just like they just make the vegetarian thing more prominent in your field of vision. Um, and another one, I love this study. It's a university in Thailand. It's a cafeteria, and they're trying to discourage people from eating fish sauce because people are apparently eating too much fish sauce for health reasons. It's like crazy amount of salt in it. And the treatment is that there's this spoon you put into the fish sauce, and then the spoon gets a hole in it. So it just becomes literally more inconvenient to serve yourself the fish sauce. Like
Wow.
that's a strategy. I don't know. I wish
I
I'd come
mean,
up with
sure. Unleash those ticks that make everyone allergic to meat.
it.
I bet you didn't
Not
test for that one.
No, we did not see any mass releases of Alpha Gal, although there is a Dan Brown novel with a very similar plot line,
Yeah.
which is like, what if we just
Really?
feed
So
the
far,
wolf?
your approaches have been outright violence and causing a disease. So,
Yeah, what's going on with that? Why is that? What do you want to do, Jasmin?
You know what? I'll call my therapist right when we're done with this interview. I'll get back to you. I
Yeah,
actually
please.
don't have a therapist, so I'll get a therapist. I'll
Yeah,
call them.
that sounds
I'll
like a
get
good
back to you.
idea
so
based on.
with choice architecture, I mean, we've had the people from Greeter by Default on a couple of times, and that's a more common kind of or more familiar kind of type of choice architecture than putting holes in the spoons, right?
Yeah. So, fun fact about that, most of those studies don't meet our criteria because they're not randomized control trials. They're like, one hospital gets it and one doesn't, and then we just compare and contrast. Um, or a lot of default studies are like one-offs. So it'll be, sorry, context. Greener by default does what their name sounds like. They make things green by default. Okay. And so imagine that like it's a university catering event. The control is you get to choose between a meat option and a veggie option, blah, blah, blah. The treatment is, it says, this conference is vegetarian. Please email us if you want meat. And like that's enough of a barrier that people just typically don't bother and they get the vegetarian option. But then there's no delayed outcomes. So back to our inclusion criteria, it's just
Mhm.
you get the thing you get like the moment you make that choice.
Right.
And this goes back to my newsletter's subtitle, what if there is regression to the meat, which is to say, what if people are like, oh, I didn't have any meat at lunch. I should have twice as much meat at dinner because I have to
So
like,
you only want to look at studies that have or interventions that have some kind of lasting effect.
yeah, or like some evidence
Not
that the effect lasts just beyond like the minute that some researcher is looking at
right.
you.